Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar with our super users. And, the title is Meet the Founders and Ask Your Questions. And so thank you for those of you who submitted questions prior. We've kind of grouped them thematically, and we'll do our very best to kind of weave them in as we go through the various themes. There are some very consistent themes, thankfully. So I'll start by introducing, who we have here with the Sensei backgrounds. So my co-founder that I'm sure you're familiar with, Corey Julin, is CTO, and Jeff, who has been with us from almost the beginning, is our COO. And so Corey is really the pro when it comes to any deep technical sort of questions. And then Jeff runs the majority of the complex business processes around marketing, customer care, and finance. And so we're very pleased to have with us a couple of experts who support us. Dr. Mark Atkinson, who is our medical director, and Dr. Drew Pearson, who is our advisor on applied neuroscience. So they will be quite instrumental in deep diving on some of the various themes. Dr. Mark and Dr. Drew, can you give a little bit more about your experience in this space?
Yeah, certainly. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you all. My name is Mark. So my expertise is mind-body medicine. So I'm a medical doctor. I've been practicing mind-body medicine for 25 years. And my knowledge and experience is mainly around the subjects of optimal mental health, mind training, and human potential development. So any kind of questions that relate to how to unfold and develop your potential using Sensei, they come over to me and to Drew. Neurofeedback, meditation, and heart coherence have been at the core of my clinical work and personal work over this amount of time. So it was such a blessing for me that Sensei decided to put them all together, plus more. So I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to making my contribution.
Wonderful.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I've been doing neurofeedback for about 25 years, actually a little bit more now. And it's really instructed me with the capacity of what we can do as in our human mind about the stretch and reach that we have neurologically. And Sensei really brings forward the ability to tap into that daily, which is an essential aspect of what we're doing to retrain the brain and give it its full capacity. So I'm really honored to be here and help everything along the way in really optimizing your training and everything from recovery to optimization of certain frequencies. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you and what you're doing with this.
Fantastic. Yeah, and so I mean, I just wanted to reiterate, it's been a 5-year plus journey since we started Sensei, and now we have super users like yourselves joining us, which makes us very excited to get to know you, get to know how you're using the product, and then also figuring out from the kinds of questions that we're getting how best to support the community, how best to build the community. So one of the first questions that we wanted to address was around, what do I think about? And I think it's one that, everyone here resonates with. Like it's the most common question, especially for folks that are new to neurofeedback, even when you're trying new programs, for people who are not familiar with meditation, especially. And so we wanted to maybe approach that from a few different perspectives. And typically, there's an aha moment that comes, and it might not even be from an expert. It might be from a friend, who approached it a certain way, and then something resonates with you. So let's kind of just be I guess exploratory with this. So I'll share my perspective. When we designed Sensei, one of the key principles was that we would help people to accelerate the benefits of meditation. And so when I think about meditation, it is not analytical. It is really non-conceptual. It is more of an awareness and and also I guess it's a tension as well on the meditative object. And so what we did is we paired boosts with the training and meditation. So you have this really nice stack that attempts to answer the question, what should I think about? And so maybe I'll just share. I took some screenshots that I thought might help answer this question a little bit. Just bear with me. I'll make it big. So for example, the screenshot I have up here is on the Clarity Training Planet. And so clarity, you can see is, we have cognisium is the mineral being trained. And when we do let me just go back a bit. If you have the opportunity to add a primer, you would click that plus button. If you selected boost, it would also give you an opportunity to select the meditation. And then there's going to be meditations that have a star next to them. And in this case, the gratitude one has a star next to it, and it's recommended. So if I was doing this, I would select the gratitude meditation, do the boost primer, and then as my meditation is coming into focus on gratitude, I'm no longer conceptually thinking about gratitude. I am meshing with gratitude. And then I go into the gamma training, right? And then you hold that. Now, that also links in with the sounds. So now I would mesh that gratitude object with the piano sound. So that would be my response to what should I think about. I would suggest stacking it with the primer, doing the boost, and doing the meditation that's recommended for each of the programs. And so that same thing holds true for the various different planets. The other tidbit I would share that I do find tends to help people is that if you get into analytical mind, our system is designed to stop or to inhibit the rewards. So we try to keep you in awareness and attention on the object, in this case being a gamma feeling such as gratitude. So Dr. Mark, I guess the other thing that you and I, kind of weaved into the app was around the instructions that we give verbally, which is soft eyes, soft tongue. And then we also advise on where to place their attention, right? So back of the head, center of the head, the heart. Maybe you can speak a bit to that.
Yes, we should really talk about that, because I'm pretty certain that the first time someone comes across that, they're going to be thinking, what is going on here? So there is a rationale for it. Essentially, what we know when we are either in meditation or neurofeedback, that we really want to go beyond the narrative-based sense of self. So the narrative-based sense of self is our thought chatter that's constantly running the show. And we know that it's so much easier to train and to access deeper states when that goes quiet. And so what we've introduced is a very simple way to actually turn off the thought stream. And it's a two-part process. And the first thing is we have to realize that most of us live what I would call in a zoomed in or locked in state. We're hyper-focused in high beta, and our mind is activated, and we have a lot of mental chatter. So we can turn that off, or at least dial it down. The first thing we do is we allow our eyes to be soft. By defocusing, we activate the body's relaxation response. So you'll notice as you're watching me speak right now, if you just pay attention to the spaciousness in between where you are and the screen and allow your eyes to defocus and soften, you'll probably almost certainly experience a deeper sense of calm. And then the second step that we teach, and this is the real key, is then we invite you to allow your tongue to be soft. So as you're listening to this, you can allow your tongue to be soft, soft eyes, soft tongue. And what you'll notice is, as you allow your tongue to be soft, the mind goes quiet. Now, why is that? Every time we are caught up in our thought stream, we've activated the thinking mechanism, and our tongue patterns will become tense. This is called subvocalization. Subvocalization is essentially speaking to yourself through mental chatter. When you allow your tongue to be completely soft, that stops subvocalization. So from this place of aware, quiet mind, it is then so much easier with very little effort to engage with the training experience. So that's part one. Part two is for different types of training, we'll make recommendations as to where you could base your attention. So what you will notice is that every time you're caught up in a thought loop, you are based at the front of the head. When you base yourself there, it activates the thinking process. What we know is that if you want to train gamma, for example, you're better off basing yourself in the center of the head. Resilium, center of the heart, heart coherence, center of the heart, and transcendium, your lower belly. So that these are intended for you to experiment with, because ultimately your brain figures out how to do this. But for sure, when you engage in neurofeedback training, start with soft eyes, soft tongue, and experiment with where you base your sense of self. And if you catch yourself thinking about it, smile, soften, and return to the instructions.
Dr. Drew, do you have anything to add to that? I'm sure you get that question all the time as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what Dr. Mark said. What you want to do is monitor that inner speech. So anything that's overthinking about itself is going to interfere with the signals coming through. And we can really get fixated with the aspect of going into this mental stimulus coming in and going, are we doing this right? And then talking about, are we doing it right? And what that does is drain certain networks in the brain. So they don't provide, they're not picking up that feedback loop, so they're not learning optimally. So when you reduce your excessive attention toward your inner thoughts, you're letting this information come through. And that information is coming through, you got to remember it's coming through very, very quickly before you're aware of it. So you let those neurons kind of feed off that and do their thing and get out of the way. By the time you're aware of it, that feeling state, the target has already happened, hundreds of milliseconds ago. So you're getting in your own way with that. So do exactly what Dr. Mark said. Go back internally, soften the gaze, soften the tongue, and get back with that information kind of transfer that's going on, and stay engaged. You want to stay focused and undistracted, but you don't want that internal chatter going on.
Okay, that's great. And you're bringing up a really good point, which is that the feedback loop is faster than the speed of thought. So if we are getting analytical with it, it is very much getting in your own way, and it's going to have the opposite effect of what you think it will have. So actually maybe that's a good segue to another theme, Dr. Drew, which is more around what is the mechanism here around training the brain? How is it that we can change the brain's traits in the long term? So doesn't the system recalibrate back to its original state over time? Is this really going to last? Yeah, maybe you can speak to that.
Well, ultimately, this is what we consider our operant conditioning. And this, you go back to classical conditioning with B.F. Skinner and Pavlov with operant conditioning. And what this is considered is the principal learning mechanism, right? So it's learning. So the more you do it, the more you learn, the more it becomes permanent, like learning a language or learning to play an instrument, learning to walk. These are learning mechanisms. So what we're doing is training the system for self-regulation and learning. And that becomes permanent. Not permanent necessarily right away. And you build up to it. That's why we train, and we train consistently. And that brain activity via neurofeedback is providing those mechanisms saying, hey, this is the optimal frequency or band or positioning within the brain to produce this. And that cellular activity, the neural components, the neurons firing in this mechanism, start to do that more and more and more, and they become a very efficient network within this too. And I want to say that too. In learning, it's not always optimized. We have good days and we have bad days. And much like kind of working out in the gym, we get into this, great days, we could really push a lot of weight. And other days, not so much. Same goes in the brain. It depends on what you eat, depends on the time of day. Are your dopamine stores, are they high? What's going on with that? So you want to optimize. Good sleep is part of it, but don't hold yourself back from training just because it's not optimal. Any little segue up in your training is going to help in the long run. All of this is instrumental in conditioning your neurology to work more efficiently. It's not just bigger, it's efficient. And when you get into these certain states of consciousness, you're able to do it at a much easier rate. And if the internal chatter going on and those components are distracting you, then you're not able to get in that state. But by training this, you're able to get in state more and really have that conditioning of the operant conditioning take effect for learning.
Yeah. So by our brain's nature, or that is neuroplastic, we have learning loops as a natural way of getting through life and learning new skills, right? And then the faster that loop, then the easier it is for us to learn. So if I imagine, like, if we have a coach who's teaching us how to golf, and then we get information like feedback a day later versus within live within that minute, we're adjusting our position that much better and learning that much faster. So that's the kind of conditioning that we're talking about, and it's natural and happens faster than us analyzing it. So that's the nature of neurofeedback as well. Okay. And so another theme that we have, which I feel like is worth going into, especially with this super user group, is around what are the frequencies that are being trained and stimulated. And so again, I'm going to just pull up this this document with some screenshots, and share screen. There it is. Sorry. And so what I wanted to point out, and I'm sure many of you have seen this before, but we'll go into a bit more detail. We've gamified the app, and we've gamified the app partly because of the behavior change required. We're going to be improving and adding on to the gamification aspects. But right now the fundamentals are in place. And part of the fundamentals is that we reward based on these minerals: transcendium, resilium, and cognesium. And then this information, if you haven't seen it, is found on the profile tab. And then we describe what each of these minerals represents with regards to the brainwave band frequencies. So beta, gamma, alpha, and theta. And those are all the ones that we train. So just to go a little bit more into that, each of the programs, so this is on the Boost tab, is tagged. And so they're tagged with these various minerals. And that gives you an indication of, is it something that's going to pick me up, right? Like cognesium, right? Because it's above alpha, it's beta and gamma. Or is it something that's going to be more slowing me down, right? The transcendium is in the theta, slower, more spacious waves. And then resilium being that alpha band, right? So that's very calm, sort of chill. So these are the various tags. The heart one I'm pointing at here is the resilium, the cognesium being that crown, and then we have this I guess infinity loop being the transcendium. And so I'll just give a little bit more color for this more advanced group. So with chill and prepare, they're both alpha, right? So they're both this resilium tag. And so in chill, where we're trying to bring you down a little bit and relax you, we're looking at your peak alpha frequency, or where within the alpha band you are resonating at that moment in time. And then we're kind of slowing you down a little bit from that. Whereas in prepare, we're doing the opposite. And so if you were to click on those and look at the descriptions, I think that'll make a lot more sense now, where within the alpha band, there's still more room to play with the algorithm. And so that's what we've done. Similarly, I'll just elaborate a little bit on expand versus social. And these are both gamma, right? So these are both the cognisium tag. So expand is very much in the gamma band, and then social is the third harmonic of that. So in every case, what we do is, because we're able to read with the electrodes, the brainwave sensors, and we're able to theoretically write, with the lights, we are actually adapting what specific frequency that we are stimulating and using with the lights. And so that's very unique to Sensei because of the hardware that we have. And so what you'll see is that at the end of every session, we will share with you what frequency it was that we stimulated your brain with. And we just find that for super users, they usually find that interesting. And then similarly with the planets, which is all the train programs. So these are all neurofeedback planets, except for ComHeart, which is heart coherence biofeedback, or HRV training. And so they're also tagged. So this one I've got clicked. You can see it, clarity, and it's got the cognisium tag again. So again, we're looking at gamma. And when it's appropriate and relevant, we will also see a synchrony. So synchrony being that we're also training synchrony, in our case, between the front and the back of the brain. And so there were some specific questions around focus. And so what I was going to share is that there are two kinds of focus that we have. So one is regular focus and the other is intense focus. And if you look at the description, you'll kind of see why they are called what they are. Focus is more we call SMR, so like a low beta, and intense focus is a mid beta. And so the descriptions will tell you, when it's more appropriate to use which. We do find that focus, the regular focus, is universally good for most circumstances. It's quite a miraculous training frequency. It's good for sports. It's good for most people who are having difficulty with distractibility. And then similarly, I was going to call out calm and deep calm. So these are the two planets that have two variations. And so calm is tagged with resilium, just like deep calm is. And calm is in the regular alpha band, whereas deep calm is slightly lower. And so deep calm is especially nice if you are having trouble sleeping. It does take you into a deeper state if you're really interested in meditative states. That's a nice one to explore as well. And in this case, you can see they both also train synchrony. And for fun, I was going to share with this group some of the ones that have mixed frequencies. So you can see that we have cognisium and resilium here, so gamma and alpha. Similarly, in the second one, we're training gamma and alpha, but they're slightly different, algorithms. And then someone had asked if we were going to have an alpha theta program, and we do already have one. You just have to unlock it if you haven't already. And that is this resilium and transcendium you can see that we're training. So hopefully that's helpful. It's probably worth pointing out, and I'll just come back to the planet map here, pointing out that we have purposely designed Sensei for I guess you'd say safety and efficacy. So we build and unlock. We're not unlocking slowly just to make it exciting. We're unlocking slowly for a really good reason. And so very much like if you were going to go deep sea diving, you want to kind of start practicing at the surface. And then you want to start going deeper as you feel more skilled to do so. And so that's very much the way that it's been designed. So hopefully that was helpful. So let's look at the next theme here. So the next theme is around scoring. And so some of the, obviously people want to understand what the scoring is based on, but also why it might fluctuate day to day. So I think we should anchor on, what is the scoring based on? Corey, maybe you can kind of walk us through on the scoring for a train session, and then start us off on scoring with the assess module as well.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, scoring, I think lots of people have questions around what does my score mean? Lots of interest in scoring, and I think it's kind of a necessary evil in some ways, because it's easy to sort of get caught up in the analytical of what is it, but let's take some time and let's dive in a little bit on scoring. So first off, the score you see and the graph you see at the end of a training session is based on your biomarkers. It's based on the sort of power level of the frequency that you're training. It incorporates streak and some other metrics, but it's all based on your data throughout the session. I would say one of the most helpful things is to be able to look at the chart and to be able to see how the graph is kind of going up and down, and you're able to sort of allocate that to sort of, hey, I was really focused, I had a great streak, or my kid walked in the room and distracted me and my score dropped off and it took me a while to recover. You'll be able to see that quite clearly in the graph. And then I would say, again, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but different time of day, different levels of tiredness, maybe whether you've had coffee or other things, all those things are going to impact your score. And then another sort of high level on the training score is we are planning sometime later this year to sort of do a sort of score distribution analysis and run sort of a new scoring algorithm. So in particular, some of the training programs, sort of the range of scores is more narrow. Sort of the most scores are sort of in a more narrow range. And so when we do deploy that update and recalculate scoring, you'll see more of a range in sort of the overall score. So I would say don't get too caught up. I think it's helpful, but I wouldn't get too caught up on, my score was 300. I think, and also I would say you can't necessarily take a focus score and compare it to a comm score. Think about each program as its own thing when you're looking at that. And I would say the other thing that is really helpful is work on your flow, work on your streaks, and sort of maintaining that is really a valuable thing to be able to increase. And your ability to sort of hold focus and hold in state is something that is really, like a strengthening endurance. Think of it like running a marathon. You're not going to be able to hold that, streak, a sprint or the full distance right away. You got to build up to it. Yeah, so that's kind of high level on scoring, on training. In terms of assessment, I think there's probably some questions on sort of what do those numbers mean. Paula, did you want to throw up that screen?
Yeah.
I think you had a screen capture of one of the score screens there.
I do, yeah. Just bring this up. Or do you want to bring this one up? Yeah, I'll bring
Yeah,
this
that one I think is helpful. So when you do your assessments, I mean, our recommendation is that you find sort of a consistent time of day that you would do them in. I would also recommend that you kind of pick a time that's kind of, hey, this is sort of my normal, I'm feeling good, kind of to run them. If you run your assessment and you are, didn't sleep the night before, your numbers are going to be way off of your baseline and significantly impacted. It is quite sensitive to to that kind of thing. So yeah, so I would say pick a consistent time of day, wait, if you're feeling really off, if you're sick, just wait till you're feeling a bit better to run your assessment. That's okay to wait a couple of days and then run it. In terms of the actual numbers, thinking speed, we're breaking down into 3 parts. And if you hit the info button, you'll get more information. But sometimes it's helpful just to hear somebody talk about it. So perception, that number is the timing of when your brain actually sees that there's something new in the environment that it needs to pay attention to. So it's sort of that, oh, there's, something changed. So when the lights flash on the Genius Pulse controller and the arrows show up, it's just your brain saying there's something there. Classification, that's going to be your brain identifying what it saw and classifying it, and saying, hey, that's a left arrow. Processing is your brain then turning that identification and saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to press a button. I'm going to not press a button. And then obviously physical reaction time is your physical pressing of the buttons. The difference between your normal reaction time and your distracted reaction time, the distracted value is when the middle arrow is pointing a different direction than the outside arrows, which are the distractions. So the difference between overall accuracy and distracted accuracy is the same thing. Streak is obviously how many times in a row you do the correct answer. Self-regulation is really interesting. I think, it's a bit tricky to sort of describe what these things are. But it's kind of cut off on the screen, but the bottom 2 numbers on the left, the far left is air perception and then air awareness. You can think of those similarly to the thinking speed, perception, and classification. So air perception, when you push the wrong button, your brain is aware of it. And in fact, while you're physically moving your thumb to press the button, you've already made the decision. Your brain's already starting to perceive that you've made a mistake. It's why sometimes you actually can pull your thumb off and realize, oh, that's not the right answer, and you can kind of correct yourself midway. So that's your brain going, something's wrong. It actually takes a little bit longer before your brain actually brings that mistake to your consciousness. So that's what awareness is. Post-error correction is another kind of interesting one. So that's in milliseconds as well. That's actually after you make an error, you actually want to slow down a little bit. It's a natural thing that your body does to correct. And so it's actually your sort of how much you slow down in reaction time on subsequent tests, flashes of the arrows after you've made a mistake. And it's a good thing for that to be positive, to slow down a little bit. So that's really sort of, high level on what those numbers are.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah.
I'm always really impressed in how much you know about event-related potentials, because it's such a niche field. And
yeah, it is really interesting.
It is super interesting. And we worked really closely with Dr. Tato Sakadze, who's a neuroscientist out of Duke. He's also president of FNNR, which is a foundation for research on the brain. And so we took this test very seriously. We didn't not just make it up. It's based on event-related potentials, and specifically it's based on the flanker test, which is one of the more complex tests to implement. So that's why we started with that one. So we will very likely add more tests, for people who are asking about roadmap. We'll be adding more event-related potential tests and other types of tests for people who are interested in nerding out on the numbers. And what's interesting here, that processing speed, that pink number 315, we were talking before about how the neural feedback loop is faster than the speed of thought. That's pretty much what we're talking about. Faster than your speed of processing is how fast the feedback is. So our feedback's around 250 milliseconds on the neurofeedback training, whereas on the Genius Pulse test, we're at one millisecond precision. which is, quite remarkable for a mobile at-home device self-serve. So over time, because I know these numbers can be a little bit ungratifying, what we're going to be able to do is benchmark these numbers within our community. So you're going to be able to see, this is how my performance is on thinking speed, for example, compared with other people my age in my geography. So I think people tend to like a little bit of competition and just some sort of measurement. So I think that'll kind of make it come alive a bit more. And I just wanted to also reiterate what Corey said there. I thought was really important is the overall score. It's something that we're working on. We're working towards having something that's consistent. I think we're getting much closer. It is something that has been a work in progress. So I wouldn't lean too heavily on that, as much as I know a lot of our community really likes numbers. However, the flow and the streak are very intuitive, very meaningful for anyone who's practiced meditation, is how long can you hold that state. And so I would encourage you to kind of keep track of those numbers. Okay.
I might just add one more thought on that as well. And just relating back to some of, Dr. Mark's kind of explaining what do I think about and some of those things. I think it's natural, especially when you're first like trying a new program. It can be really natural to you have a streak and then all of a sudden you lose it and it's like, oh, why did that happen? And you kind of go back into the analytical and you kind of lose your place. The other thing that can happen, each of the programs is targeting sort of a narrow range of state, whether it's how aware you are, how focused you are, how deep it is, and so it's really easy to sort of, when you slip out of that state or even slip into it, to jump into analytical. And one example that can be counterintuitive, if you're doing our focus program, there's the main focus program. So there's intense focus and the regular focus. The regular focus is a relaxed focus state. It's not a hyper focus, action-oriented state. So you actually do generally want to drop down a little bit into relaxation. The trick is not dropping too far into drowsiness. And so sometimes you'll be good, and then over time you lose a bit of focus, you get a bit drowsy, you drop down, and then sometimes by going into analytical thought, you actually sort of awaken a bit of alertness and you cross over a bit back into state, but then so you're bouncing back and forth. So, and that'll come, that comes with just, practice and sort of learning each program. So it is good to be consistent with your programs and stick with each program consistently, daily, over a period of time.
So maybe this is a nice segue, Dr. Drew, to address some questions around the best sort of duration of sessions and taking breaks between programs or missions. Could people overtrain? So within the design, we have cool downs. But what are your thoughts on that, sort of more generally? What's your advice?
Well, let me give you a bit of my kind of experience over the years. There's different times for different frequencies. So let's say we're doing a focus frequency, right? An SMR type. 20 to 30 minutes seems to be optimal for that. And when you go beyond that, you get a lower return on investment in that. Doesn't mean you're not going to get anything out of it, but keep it sharp, 20 to 30 minutes, and you're going to get a lot out of it without, using a lot of excessive time training that. Now with alpha, you can train that a little bit longer, 30, 40, even up to an hour, and get great benefit from that. The time in between is going to be essential too. So my advice is clinically is to look at, you know, the upper frequencies, the focus and intense focus as focus time, spend it about 20 to 30 minutes, and then the lower frequencies, anywhere from, you can do a 15-minute to an hour in that, and just find that sweet spot for the meditative process that those bring about. Now, time in between, let's talk about that. Generally, you want a day in between some of these. If you're doing lower frequencies, you can do it a little bit more. But like with SMR or focus and intense focus, you want to, you know, just have about a day in between. And let's say you finish a mission. You want to take a few days off. Not too much, but not too little either. And then you can start the next mission depending on what you want to go on. Within the brain, there's a electrophysiological mechanism of how fast you adapt, and it's very quick. Then you have the physiological aspect of, hey, the neurons are growing, they're connecting, they're doing this. That takes longer. So giving them that respite, giving them that few days of rest in between missions, will let them grow optimally during that time without taxing them. And, you know, making sure your sleep is on course and your nutrition is on course, are two big factors going into this. Hopefully that will clear up the time mechanisms for that.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And then before we leave scoring, Corey, I was just going to share, this is at the top of our science page right now, but this might kind of help bring it home, some of those numbers that you were just pointing out at the assess screen results page.
Yeah, did you want me to talk about this, or do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, we've been able to have a look at, you know, what people are getting out of it in terms of their assessment after, you know, running different missions, and you know, within 1 month, sort of what are results looking like, and it's really incredible, and we're really excited to be able to share this, that you know, we're seeing, you know, the sort of sharper, faster, better aspects. So 7.3% faster thinking speed. That's the processing speed that we were looking at. The reaction time, again, 7.8% improvement. Which is really, really significant. And the reduction in errors and inhibition control is quite significant as well. In terms of like specific missions, again, we're seeing, you know, sleep mission, focus mission, we're seeing really great results, both in the assessments and as well as in the answering of sort of the question. So as you do, part of the assessment is, you know, hey, how well are you falling asleep, and those kinds of things, and sort of those self-reported metrics are you know, correlating to those missions are quite strong in the improvements that we're seeing.
Okay, that's great. Corey, maybe we'll stick with you for the next theme, which is all around heart coherence.
Yeah.
Maybe you can ground us sort of in the measurement and what it is exactly. Why is it measured as a percentage, etc.?
Yeah. Okay. I actually really love our heart coherence and the Calm Heart program that we have. That's something, you know, do it 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. You know, that is super beneficial for all kinds of things. In terms of what the coherence means, it's a measure of the simplest way to say it is how smooth your heart rate moves up and down over time. So your heart rate is always going to move up and down naturally. You actually want it to do that. That's how we measure heart rate variability. When you put yourself into a state of heart coherence, that movement is very smooth. In fact, it starts to look like a sine wave. And so a 100%, which is possible, you can sort of temporarily hit 100% heart coherence, is your heart is perfectly following that sine wave very smoothly, your heart rate pattern up and down. Why would we do that? It actually, I mean, maybe Dr. Mark can add a bit of color there in terms of what that state does to you. Maybe go ahead, Dr. Mark. I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot, but do you want to just fill a bit of color in on that, and then I can keep going?
Oh, he
Yeah,
wants to.
well,
I knew he wanted to.
yeah, I want to. I definitely want to on this. I think the way of understanding this is that when you access a state of heart coherence, you enter into an internal state of flow and efficiency and harmony, in which you're present and centered, engaged and responsive. It brings all of your systems into harmony and this efficient, sweet place of functioning. And so, in a way, it's kind of tempting to skip over heart coherence, but it is really important that everyone really spends time on calm heart whenever you can. It's very tempting to want to kind of, move through the neurofeedback programs, but there's some golden rules here. And the first one is you got to train a balance of heart coherence and your alpha calm and your focus. They are the foundations that need to be in place so that when you encounter the deeper levels of neurofeedback programs, and that's the theta programs and of course the gamma programs, those are so much easier to navigate and receive the benefit from and be in contact with. So in subsequent webinars, we will return to heart coherence, as we'll return to all of these different elements of the new feedback training, but super important.
Yeah, thank you. And it's one of the, so if we you may have heard the terms like sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, autonomic nervous system. Breathing is one aspect that is both automatic and we can control. And by breathing, you can actually influence your heart rate by controlling your breathing. And so it actually is a way to bring balance into your nervous system. And so that's what heart coherence training is about, what calm heart training is about. And just a tip in terms of breathing, there's a lot of different sort of breathing styles out there. A lot of them involve sort of breathing in, stopping, breathing out, stopping, breathing in, stopping. And so one tip for the calm heart is to actually think about it like you're riding a wave, so that as you get to the, the reverse point of the breath, you actually want to kind of be slowing down and then switching directions and kind of, riding the in and out breath smoothly, like you're on a sort of a wave. And that can help sort of improve your consistency at it. In terms of HRV, I'll just mention a couple of things. So I think, again, our group loves data. So heart rate variability is unique to every person. So it's not something you can compare to anybody else. So that it's not, oh, mine's higher than yours. It's relative to yourself. As well, again, sleep can have a huge impact on what your HRV value is. Coffee, your stress level, significant, whether you're sick, significant impact. All those things can affect it. The other thing to keep in mind, if you are using other sort of wearable tracking devices, most of them will measure your HRV at night and give you a value for that, because it's a little bit more of a consistent time to check it. But even then, you'll see quite a bit of variability. But yeah, so but measuring it when you're asleep is again another different value than when you're awake and using it. When you do the Calm Heart program, you are influencing your heart rate variability value. So again, if you're comparing your heart rate variability coming out of a Calm Heart, what you get in the score there, versus when you were doing a calm session, those values could be different across those. So yeah.
But
Can
there
I
is so
add
much
something
interest
here?
in, sorry? No, go ahead. Go ahead, Drew.
Just a quick thing. When you're doing your calm heart training, the HRV training, it's going to potentiate calm. It's going to potentiate your alpha also. So that's why they're sequenced that way. It's a 1-2 punch. So to get the most out of your calm, do the calm heart beforehand. The HRV, the coherence aspect of it, really sets up alpha in the brain and is really beneficial for that. And the training just makes it more consistent. And once your heart learns that coherence aspect, it really feels good and it likes to really stay there, very resilient in that. I'm sure Dr. Mark finds the same thing. I know he preaches that pretty consistently.
Yeah.
I think he is the walking calm heart here. So
The walking calm heart. Yeah. So yes, calm heart, super simple but powerful. And often we want to skip it, but we highly recommend people engage with it. And it's certainly most of us now are, you know, you're measuring with a ring or you're measuring with a band for HRV. This is a method for you to actually influence your HRV traits over time. So our data on that is incredibly powerful, and we'll be sharing that as well soon. Okay, so because we're not afraid to tackle the big questions, we do have a number of people in our community of super users that are from the Finders course and are in fundamental well-being. And there are some questions around fundamental well-being and happiness. I'll just share that Jeff, Dr. Mark, Dr. Drew, and myself have all been through the long Finders course from some years ago. And so Dr. Mark, maybe you can start by helping those people not familiar. What is fundamental well-being that we're talking about? How does happiness fit in? And then how might Sensei fit in?
Yeah. And do all of that in 3 minutes?
Well, we just seven minutes, but then yeah,
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay, that's good. So I think the first thing to say is I've recently just published a blog article at Sensei on the 3 levels of happiness, which actually goes into this in quite a lot of depth. A fundamental well-being is a term that was coined by Jeffrey Martin, who is a consciousness researcher, to describe a enduring state of inner contentment and wholeness. And he, with his colleagues, have created a highly structured program of meditation and positive psychology training that is designed to evoke, at its core level, a fundamental shift in your identity, the way you experience yourself and reality. And we know we have a lot of graduates from the program with us. And in my article, I talk about the first 2 levels of fundamental well-being. And the thing for everyone to note here is really, when you do this type of inner training, neurofeedback and meditation are perfect partners for this. And through the training process, what's happening is that very dominant narrative personal sense of self is going from the foreground to the background. And in its place arises a deeper sense of presence and a fundamental sense of okayness. So all of the kind of drama and narrative and fear and worry that tends to shape and influence a lot of our experience and the way we show up in life, it starts to fall away. So once you kind of move into fundamental well-being, you start to experience a lot more calm. When you do get triggered and activated, it's kind of seen through pretty quick. Often you can just smile pretty quickly. And then as you continue to engage with the practices, then over time, you can move along the continuum and down. And so for those of you who have done the Finders course or the most recent version, 45 Days to Awakening, the real key to deepening your position of fundamental well-being or moving along the continuum is to sink into and open up to whatever experience you're having unconditionally. And that must be precluded by unconditional welcoming of what shows up. And the easiest way to do that is soft eye, soft tongue. So that turns off the narrative self, but allow an inner smile to expand from your heart to fill your experience, because the act of inner smiling tells the nervous system that in this moment, all is okay. You're safe. And in the experience of feeling safety, this deactivates the stress response and allows to sink and keep dropping down into whatever's showing up. So if you're in fundamental well-being, you really got to start with the foundations of heart coherence, that's calm heart, and your alpha and low beta training, because one of the consequences of going to fundamental well-being is often our ability to access and use our memory becomes impaired. Our ability to focus becomes impaired. You know, it's so much more easy to be attuned to the spaciousness and the fundamental awareness that is here. So we actually, a lot of people will report they actually struggle to use their mind. So my recommendation and advice is you persist with the early programs. And then as you move through those programs and stick through and complete your missions, then eventually you'll get to some programs that are really well suited to fundamental well-being. And the first one is introspection. Okay. And so when you see introspection, that's where you start. And then beyond that, at a higher level of training is insight. And insight is theta gamma synchrony training. And when you engage in those programs, keep opening up. And there's a couple of final tips I'll give you. When you train, be in a comfortable, relaxed meditation posture. That can be seated, it can be cross-legged, but assume a position of dignity. And that means having a dignified back line, but soft front line. There shouldn't be any effort, striving, or strain at all. So it's soft front line, soft eye, soft tongue, dignified back line. And then hold the simple light intent to be filled with musical notes. And when those musical notes show up in your experience, allow them to fill you and flow through you as you simultaneously allow yourself to sink. And herein lies part of the secret to going deeper. Okay, I think we'll leave it there.
That was amazing. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. So I'll just answer an easy one, which is just around roadmap and where we're investing, you know, our time. Our group is still really heads down on product development, improving the UX experience. So that's like front and center at the moment. We also have a roadmap I've probably mentioned, you might have heard me mention in the past, which is around group synchrony. And so no firm timeline on that, but let's say in the next year, we will prioritize that. And we already have the fundamentals of that ready to go. And that is where the harmonium mineral fits in that some people were asking about. Why can't I earn harmonium? No one has earned any harmonium. So that will come with group synchrony. And then also the reporting, we will get better and better. You know, there is that check-in that comes before and after each program that you train or boost that asks you happiness, and you know, it asks you, you know, if you're tired, etc. We will be able to report that back to you soon and kind of help you to assess what the effect is of the various programs, so that you can have you know, more reliable trending for yourself. And then lastly, I was going to just mention that we do have an affiliate program, and some people were asking about that. You can find that on our website. And if you go to the bottom of our homepage, it says Sensei slash, oh, sorry, it's called Partners Program, or it's also, you can directly find at sense.ai/partners. And then that'll help you to apply. And there's like a whole program around that. But there's also going to be a 30-day challenge that for those of you that want to help us spread the word. You know, we're not a traditional marketing organization. We don't like the traditional marketing methods of fear and we're just struggling with that as an organization. And so we really feel at this moment in time that it's so important for our community to help us spread the word in a very authentic way based on their experience. And so that's what Blair from our marketing team would like to kind of introduce to you as a concept, and see if invite you to join a champions program. So Jasmine, are we able to have Blair present? So okay, well, you're going to receive a post event survey, which will pop up, but you're also going to receive it in an email.
Hi.
And oh, there's Blair. Okay, wonderful.
I don't know if you can see me, but I'm here in voice.
I can hear you. All good.
Hi. Well, this is so exciting. So, because you are all here because you love Sensei, we want to embrace that love and encourage you to create images and videos of your experience with the product. So, the 30-day challenge is me holding your hand and showing, oh, I think my face gets to come up. I don't have the background, but here I am. Hi, everyone. So I know we're over a few minutes, so I'm going to be fast, and all of this is going to be emailed out to you, but I'm a social media marketing expert, a pioneer in that space. I've been doing it for over 17 years, and we've created this really beautiful program for 30 days. And if you're interested in being one of the Sensei champions, we'll put you in a private group, and I will be providing you instructions and guidance on creating really great content, images and videos. And it doesn't mean you need to have all these followers on social media. In fact, you don't really even need social media because we are going to ask for you to share those images and photos with us. If you have social media, we're going to ask that you share those photos and images with your followers. And we're going to be giving away amazing prizes, including one prize of a 90-minute session with Dr. Mark. And I mean, I think that that's pretty awesome. It's a health and performance optimization session for 90 minutes. It's a private session, so extremely valuable. But also you get to learn how to create really fun and engaging social media content. And you pretty much have me almost at your beck and call. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you in this. It's going to start next week, so we need to know how interested you are. There's going to be a form coming at the end of this call, I believe. And if you're watching the replay, you'll still have this form. I would love to be a part of this with you.
Thanks so much, Blair. Really appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us, and thank you for your questions. And then if you could fill out the post webinar survey, that'll really help guide us on how to build the community further. Thanks so much.